Wanted to make a quick video and show you some of my fruit trees that are flowering and some that are starting to set some fruit. I'll start here with these recently transplanted blackberries that I purchased. These are relatively new to the backyard orchard. I'll list the varieties on the screen, but both of these are thornless varieties. Blackberry vines can get a little out of control if you let them. So I'm going to keep them in the grow bags and hopefully be able to control their growth a little bit more and use these tomato cages to try and keep them in line. This one here is already starting to set a little bit of fruit. Per nursery info, it's supposed to set a fruit that's relatively large and a little bit sweeter than most varieties. This other one here is a low chill variety that only requires 100 hours of chill hours, and it produces a medium-sized berry. And both of these are self-pollinating. And the growing zones for them are 7A to 10B. And next are my cherry trees. And that's a mini royal on the left and a royal Lee on the right, which is in, as you can see, in full bloom. This season, for some unknown reason, the royal Lee is running way further behind the mini royal on as far as the flowering cycle goes. These varieties are listed as excellent cross-pollinators for one another, but as you can see here, the mini royal is already starting to set fruit, and the royal Lee is in full bloom. There's not a single flower on the mini royal, so I don't expect that I'll be getting a good harvest off of these this season. There's a variety that's supposed to bloom somewhere in between both of these, which should help with the cross-pollination. It's called a crimson cherry tree. I'm going to see if I can get some scions from that variety and graft them onto these. Hopefully that'll improve the cross-pollination. And here's my Pakistan mulberry that is growing in a large wooden container, and it's still producing fruit. Started picking fruit off of this one sometime around late February, I believe. And as you can see, it's still developing quite a bit of fruit on it. And over here are some pea vines that I planted over here in this corner. I wasn't sure that they would do well. I only planted about 3 vines, but they're doing well. I think next season I'll plant some more. And over here are my jujube trees that are just barely starting to produce flower buds. They're at the very early stages. They produce a really tiny flower, but it's got quite a few, so it should be a pretty good harvest. This one here is running a little bit further behind, but it's also producing some flower buds, and it doesn't have quite as much branching as the other tree, but should be a pretty decent harvest off of it. And here's my Surinam cherry. Back in mid-February, this one produced a really heavy set of flowers, and now, as you can see, it's just at the very early stages of developing fruit. They're pretty hard to see, they're still pretty small, but it has quite a few scattered throughout the tree. And it's been in the ground for well over 5 years, and this is the heaviest fruit set that it's ever had. It's fruited in previous seasons, but this is the most it's ever produced. These will also do well growing in a container. And here are my Emperor lychee trees, which started to produce flower buds in late March. And as you can see, both of them have a pretty good amount of flower buds. And next is my Kohala Longan. And these panicles that you see here also started to form in late March. And it has a fair amount of flower buds on them, so hopefully it'll get a good harvest. And next is my Sabra Jabba. This one, several weeks ago, towards the end of March, it had a few flowers that were in bloom, but it never set any fruit. So I recently came through and I pruned it, and I opened up the center to allow more sunlight to come in. Hopefully that'll help on its next flowering cycle. And next is my burgundy plum tree, which I recently grafted some scions onto it. I'll list the varieties on the screen. It's still too early to tell if they took or not. I'll keep you posted in future videos. And next are my fuzzy kiwi plants that I have growing in these 10-gallon grow bags. I've had them for several years now. They've never produced any fruit because they've been pretty much neglected. I had them growing in 12-inch pots, and I recently just got through transplanting them to these 10-gallon grow bags. These are not self-pollinating, and this is the male. You require a male and female plant in order to produce fruit. So what I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to use these 2 palm trees that are here in the back. I'm going to put them pretty close to the base of the palm trees and have them climb up the palm, use it as a trellis. Hopefully they'll do well. If not, I can always, since they're in grow bags, I can always move them somewhere else. And here are my fig trees. This one here in the front is there's 3 of them planted here in the ground. This one here in the front is the Peter's honey, which, as you can see, is doing really well, putting on some really nice, healthy looking leaves. This variety puts on some pretty vigorous growth, so last season pruned this one back quite a bit because I wanted to give I have an Excel fig and a blackjack fig in the back that I wanted to give them a chance to get a little bit more sunlight and a little bit more growth. They were being shaded out by the Peter's honey. Over here on this side, over here is the blackjack. Now that they're getting more sunlight, they should do well. And next are my persimmon trees. This one you see here on the front, I recently planted in early March. It's put on a good amount of growth, and it's just recently started pushing out its first flower buds, as you can see here. It's at the very early stages of development. There's only about 3 of them so far. And over on this other side, I have another persimmon. Over here, this other one here in the back here, there's a Fuyu persimmon. It's been in the ground for about 4 years now. No flower buds on it, but it should do well. I got about 20 off of it last season. And over here are my mangoes. This one here in the front is a coconut cream mango. And once again, it's produced quite a few panicles with a really heavy set of flower buds. It's been in the ground just over 4 years, and last few seasons it's produced a heavy set of flowers like you see here, but it's yet to set any fruit. This one here is my Glen mango. It's been in the ground about the same amount of time that the coconut cream's been planted. And last season I got my first fruit off of it. And looks like it's gonna set some fruit again this season. It's still a young tree, so I'll likely only allow a couple to set. And over here is my Kerry mango that I recently planted. No flower buds on this one, and I really wouldn't allow any fruit to sit on it. It's just recently been planted, but it's doing well. Next is my stone fruit section. This one here in the front is my multi-grafted peach tree, which I thinned out earlier this season, and it looks like I should have thinned it out a little bit more. There's still quite a bit of fruit left on the tree. This will be its 4th year in the ground, and it's done really well. First year that it was planted, I did have a problem with peach leaf curl, but now I spray it during the winter months with copper fungicide, and it seems to have helped quite a bit. This next one here is the Red Baron peach tree. It put on a little bit of fruit, but I stripped them all off, and I'm only going to leave a couple of them on there. And next is my Santa Barbara peach tree that is just barely starting to bloom. It doesn't produce nearly as many peaches as the multi-grafted does, but last season I did manage to get about 20 off of it. And the next one over here with these deep red colored leaves is my Spice Z Nectiplum. I didn't get much of a harvest off of it last season, but this year it looks like it's going to do much better. And this is my Snow Queen Nectarine that is just barely starting to bloom. The other one next to it, this one here, is Saze King, and I'm not real particularly happy with the fruiting off of this one. Most of the fruit off this one winds up splitting before it ripens on the tree, so not a very good harvest off of it. And here in this last group I have 2 apricot trees, and this one here, which is a Aprium. It's a cotton candy Aprium. And I get pretty good crops off of this one. It has quite a bit of fruit that is setting on there. It's a bit hard to see because it's still pretty small, but it's got quite a few that have set. This other one here is the Royal Blenheim Apricot. It has a good amount that have set as well, but not as many as the Aprium. The one that I have been having trouble with is the Katy apricot that's on the other side. It was planted a little over 4 years ago, and last season was the first year that I got any fruit off of it, and it was only about 4 of them. We'll see how it does this season. And here, growing in this large wooden container, is my semi-dwarf real red grapefruit tree. This one put on a heavy set of blooms this season, the heaviest so far, and it looks like quite a few of these are going to wind up setting fruit. And next to it over here, this one is my Meyer Lemon tree, which is also starting to set some fruit. It's going on its 7th year in this 22-inch container, so it's probably going to be needing to be up potted in another season or 2. We'll see how it does. And next is my ice cream banana patch. I had 3 plants that produced bananas, and they rendered about 50 bananas off of each rack. This is the last one here that I just recently cut off. I'll have to chop this plant down, but pretty good season for the bananas. And this is my Dorset golden apple tree. This one has done really well. It's setting some fruit. I went through and counted. There's about 50 that are setting on here, and they're scattered throughout the whole tree. And in my growing zone, I usually get about 2 flowering cycles. And what I've noticed about this variety, at least for my growing zone, during the winter months, it doesn't drop all its leaves. I have to go through and strip off all the leaves during winter, otherwise it'll keep a good portion of its leaves even during winter. Even so, as you can see, it still manages to produce a good amount of fruit. It's an excellent variety if you live in a low chill area like I do. And this is my Celeste Fig tree that is at the very early stages of developing fruit. It has quite a bit that's coming out. This one usually produces a pretty good set of fruit. And this is another one that's been growing in a pot for quite a long time that it's going to be ready for transplant pretty soon. It's been in this pot for about 7 years, so it'll be ready for transplanting in another season or 2. In my last video, I talked about a jackfruit tree that was a dwarf variety that could be maintained at about 8 feet. And this is the one that I talked about that I had ordered. It's a gold nugget dwarf variety. And per nursery info, these are small, compact dwarf varieties that can be maintained at about 8 feet and still produce a fair amount of fruit. So we'll see how this one does. This is another jackfruit tree that I have that's on regular rootstock. I'll list the variety on the screen. Under ideal conditions, some varieties can get up to 30, 40 plus feet in height. I'm not exactly sure what the max height is for this one, but being that it's growing on regular rootstock, I imagine it can get pretty big. I recently saw a video where some growers were training regular stock jackfruit to be maintained at a height of about 8 to 10 feet, and they were getting good fruit production off of it. The way they were growing it was they pruned it in the open vase shape, and they kept 4 or 5 of the lower branches and trained them to grow at a 45-degree angle. And from what I could see on the video, they were producing quite a bit of fruit. On this one, I cut that leader branch in order to encourage some lower branching. I'll keep 4 or 5 of the lower branches there and start to train them to go at a 45-degree angle. Hopefully I'll be able to get this one to maintain a height of about 8 to 10 feet and be able to get some fruit production off of it. And here is my Carmen Avocado that I recently purchased, and it's trying to set some fruit. Has a few here that looks like they're gonna set. This tree is still way too young to be allowing it to set any fruit, so I'll be taking these off. But at least it's good to see that this small of a tree and it's healthy enough to try and set some fruit. And next is another new addition to the backyard orchard. This is a strawberry tree. I'm not real happy with the branching on this one. It has some lower branches here that I'm gonna wind up cutting off. The leader branch here, as you can see, was cut off probably for simplifying the shipping process. But as you can see, it's starting to sprout all kinds of new growth. So as soon as some of these get a little bit bigger, I'm going to go ahead and chop off those lower branches. This is an evergreen tree that produces small red cherries that darken in color as they ripen. They have a mild, sweet flavor, and the tree is also self-pollinating. Well, that'll be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching. If so, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you can follow along. As always, stay safe, grow your own, and thank you for watching.